directed to the so-called caring professionals who had caused me harm. The aim was to clarify three things for myself. One, what it was they did. Two, what the effect of it was. Three, what they could have done instead. This is what I wrote. To specific doctors, including psychiatrists, and other hospital, social, and home care staff. I could start this letter with the word dear, as I ought to, but that would be a lie. My regard for each of you has declined in line with the disdain you showed me. Also, I might have written to each of you individually. When it comes to it, each of you make different mistakes towards me, each within their own context. However, they are only variations on the same theme. Your professional conduct towards someone with a diagnosis you looked down upon. This immediately points to my first question and reproach addressed to you. After having heard often enough how I imagined my symptoms, how I used them as a symbol towards my friends, or to compensate for the lack of attention I had suffered as a child, I learned to ask the question whether that made me any less ill. If I had imagined all of this, if my condition had been purely psychosomatic, would that have denied me the right to any respect and genuine care? That is definitely how your attitude towards me and fellow people diagnosed with myalgic encephalomyelitis, also known as chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME/CFS for short, seemed. Each of the examples I give came to me directly from one of you. As long as I resisted, I would never heal, so you advised. You were right. Since then, it has come to light that I have a genetically transmitted condition, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. The best I can expect is to learn to live with it, also according to professional advice. To what extent that relates to resisting nonsense, I still wonder. I can hear you calling the diagnosis into doubt. ME/CFS patients are the kind of people who will hop from doctor to doctor until they find some kind of acknowledgement they can hide behind. I can tell you that the discovery was initially made in the genetic department of a university hospital and later on confirmed twice in another. That would appear to be pretty reliable, wouldn't you say? It's best not to perform any further investigations on ME/CFS patients. Something will always be found, is what I heard. Indeed, I spent years with pain that was dismissed under that heading. I was given painkillers and antidepressants. Something natural every now and again, and ample sick leave whenever I indicated the need. It was an endocrinologist who finally ordered an MRI for my back. This was entirely outside of his domain. But he was the only one prepared to care. On the basis of the results, the neurosurgeon saw the need for 2 operations. The vertebrae was stuck bone to bone. The intense pains I had been complaining of for years was more than warranted, he said. I learned from you that I had to be able to justify everything I said every emotion, every thought, every decision. When I finally succeeded in analysing and correcting myself, you felt this got in the way. I should leave all that behind and follow your lead. I was expected to offer blind trust when you had repeatedly trampled over every agreement we had made. My bitterness and anger ooze from this letter, and I can imagine that drastically diminishes your willingness to accept what I am saying. In your eyes, I most likely remain someone who once had an ME/CFS diagnosis, proving its accuracy with this very piece of writing. The more, the better, and the stronger the arguments a patient brings to the table to discount allegations that they are in denial, the stronger the proof that they're in denial. I have always had the grit to question myself. When you implied that a fault in the way I felt and thought might be the root cause of my perpetual exhaustion and pain, I was prepared to examine myself closely. I learned a lot by doing that, for which I'm grateful. What this internal search also left me with is doubt around how genuine anything I feel can ever be. These days I'm advised to listen to my body. But you taught me that this was led by my psyche, that was where I had to mend it. And most importantly, that I should invest as little time and effort as possible in my body's attention-seeking tendencies. When something goes wrong, I wonder whether I should mention it, ask for help, let alone request investigation and treatment. Even when my husband is driving me to the accident and emergency department, or when strangers call an ambulance for me, I am concerned the conclusion will be that this was an extremely exaggerated response. What if everything turns out to be fine? That is the question that gets the upper hand with every injury, every torn muscle, every asthma attack, every kidney stone, every hernia, however much proof I have gathered that my instinctive estimations are usually correct. This whole process, which causes depletion and delay, involves risks. In addition, I initially distrust any doctor or therapist new to me. And despite being able to overcome that, I remain alert. Again, time and energy are lost. Yet, I have experienced significantly more respect, care, and understanding since a collection of diagnoses explain all of my physical symptoms. It's as if now I finally deserve it. What requirements should I have met to have been worthy of yours? Your intervention might have been more positive and more efficient had you taught me some energy-saving strategies. When it appeared that credible reasons could be found for the problems I had been reporting for over 20 years, I found this difficult. A friend pointed out that I would rather believe the psychosomatic explanation because it gave me a sense of control. If I could find the switch in my mind that could ensure my health, I would do anything to flick it. That is how it is. The image each of you drew, fed, and strengthened dominates the process of acceptance I am confronted with continually. You said my sense of loss and request for grief work was totally unjustified. If I had had AIDS or something like that, then, yes. I still struggle to allow myself the right to mourn everything my lack of health has taken away from me. This goes beyond just me. My husband often feels frustrated, angry, and helpless at the high demands I place on myself. And what kind of example am I? To ask some who shares a few of my diagnoses. Meanwhile, for several years now, the notion of self-compassion has been put to me. I suspect it may be easier for me to pick up had your approach been different. Stronger still, perhaps this would achieve better results even in purely psychosomatic cases. Only your logic prescribed that providing people who had an ME/CFS diagnosis with any aids or adaptations was foolish, since they love being dependent so much. A minimum of respect, a bit of openness and willingness to listen would have made a huge difference. The courage to question the fact that you were right might have achieved better results. My quality of life with and beyond this diagnosis, which turned out to be wrong, could have been much higher had you fulfilled your role with a sense of warmth, humanity, and dedication. Instead, you caused permanent harm. I can hear your answer that I interpret any such damage as everlasting due to my own weakness, my lack of volition to overcome this and go forward. I guess you're right. I understand that that's very important to you. Fellow human beings, do I need to point out that medical gaslighting is injustice? Yet it continues as we speak. Many patients with chronic, barely visible, fluctuating, and or rare conditions suffer. Most are too ill and too ashamed to raise their voice. That is why I wrote my memoir, Recognize Me, about the subject. Do I wish to incite anger in us all? Absolutely. Enough, so together we can effect change. Our community needs you to amplify our voice. We all need a society that implicitly and explicitly expects that every single patient gets treated with respect.